Voodoo Ranger IPA, reminding you to live rangerously and drink responsibly. May the beer always flow and your dice rolls ever be in your favour. And for beer news and occasional mediocre advice, follow at Voodoo Ranger on Twitter and Instagram.
As we reach the end of the year, Christmas begins to rear its festive head over the horizon, like a speeding bullet train flying off the rails. Jesus Christ, this year has gone so fast, I don't even know what day it is anymore. But Yuletide means that the likelihood of you being stuck in a house with a large number of bored family members and friends reaches very high levels, and usually those family and friends are not exactly board game experts. So with that in mind, we've assembled a list of some of the best party board games ever designed that are easy to teach and a bundle of laughs to play. As always, the items on this list are merely our opinion, and if we've missed out your absolute favourite, feel free to recommend it in the comments. But let's get right into it with number 1. If you've seen Reservoir Dogs, then the concept of shady criminals, all identified only by a colour, trying to squeeze each other out of the picture so they can make off with the money from their latest heist may seem quite familiar to you, but for the uninitiated, the scene is as follows. Yourself and up to 11 other players have just pulled off a big job, and you're splitting the cash between yourselves. But because you are a greedy mobster criminal in a crime film, and the idea of HR disputes is rather lost on you, you've decided that you'd much rather take the risk of killing off those in the group who aren't paying attention so that you can grab a chunk of their share of the prize. Slight issue though, literally everyone else in the group has had the exact same idea and is trying to off you as well. You have to wonder how there's still enough criminals going around to do these jobs if this is what happens after all of them. So how do you navigate this landscape of fragile allegiances and health and safety in the workplace concerns? Well, play is delightfully simple. Everyone around the table is assigned a colour, and they have a deck of cards in front of them containing every other player around the table's colour. Each turn, you choose one of the cards in your deck and place it face down in front of you. Then, when everyone's decided, you flip all the cards, and whoever's colour has been selected by the majority of people around the table gets eliminated. If there's a tie, then everyone who tied for the most votes gets eliminated, and as the box says on its front, if you didn't see it coming, you're already dead, as anyone who didn't vote for the player or players getting eliminated is also chucked out of the game. Thus, Dead Last becomes less of a social deduction game and more of a social collusion game. The goal is not only to avoid being voted out of the group, but also to make sure you know who everyone's voting for so that you don't get left behind. Well, that's easy wheels, I hear you say. We just all decide on someone to vote for and then none of us but them get eliminated. So you might think, my friends, so you might think, but therein lies the central puzzle of Dead Last. As included in every player's deck is a trap card just waiting to be sprung. If you end up being voted on by the majority of the group and you skipped voting to instead lay that trap card out in front of you, you instead get to pick off one of the players who try to off you to get offed themselves. So now the game is not a challenge of trying to avoid the deadly judgment of the masses, but also to try and form your mob of grumpy criminals and launch an attack on one of the players without them finding out. Cue a full minute of non-verbal communication, including suspicious eye glances, taps on the knee, maybe a few obvious yawns with a hint of a point at the top. Dead Last is a hilarious game of pregnant pauses and menacing silence. Picking on social cues has never been more death-defying. It's easy to pick up and teach and play super quickly, so you can just play a couple of rounds or try for a proper victory by amassing the most gold in the group after you've reached the final 2 a sufficient number of times. If you like giving suggestive eyebrow raises to your friends and being a crafty devil, then this one is definitely for you. Battleship. Everyone's played it, it's a classic. But despite its thrilling promise of hunting for enemy submarines, it's often a bit boring to play as you peg yet another miss on your board and hope that your luck will hold out. Captain Sonar takes the exciting theme of Battleship and makes it a game that's actually fun to play. Even better, it invites more people to the table, turning it into a tense team game of cooperation, cat and mouse chases, and blowing your opponents out of the water. Each player is given a role about their team's sub, from captain and first mate to engineer and radio operator. Everyone has an important job to do in order to keep the sub running with a unique mini-game style puzzle on their player mat. You might be piloting the sub around one of the various gridded map layouts, needing to take specific directions to avoid crashing into land and damaging systems, or building up the vessel's abilities gauges to allow it to track the enemy with sonar and unleash torpedoes, or stealthily avoid being detected yourself. Although Captain Sonar can be played in turns, the game really comes alive when played in real time, with each crew of players shouting their orders out loud to their teammates and the enemy. The radio operator on each team is responsible for tracking the enemy's directions on a transparent sheet, gradually working out where they might be based on the route they take and helping their captain sink them first. Because every role feels important, Captain Sonar plays best with a full table of 8 people who sit either side of a screen that hides their boards, really bringing home its place as a modern successor to Battleship. You can still play with fewer people, but that involves players having to take up multiple roles, which can be a bit more demanding. Captain Sonar was followed by a spin-off just called Sonar, designed for 2 to 4 people, but it drops the real-time mode, which is easily the best way to play the game. So we'd still recommend getting the bigger box. If you can get 8 people around a table, even 6 maybe, there are fewer team experiences better than Captain Sonar. It's brilliant fun to work as a crew in real time, genuinely heart-pounding as you chase down your hidden opponents, and the kind of game that will have you jumping up from your seat to cheer and high-five as you land the final blow. It might not have been on your radar before, but it absolutely deserves to be. Artistic inspiration can be found in any number of places. Fond childhood memory, a picturesque natural landscape, the fear of being absolutely dragged by your friends. This third source is particularly relevant when it comes to playing Telestrations, a party game that's all about attempting to draw a somewhat acceptable image whilst under immense pressure. Drawing is a mechanic that's been used to great effect in a lot of classic party games, such as in Pictionary and A Fake Artist Goes to New York, which I'll be talking about later. But Telestrations takes things one step further by combining the mechanics of drawing with the naturally chaotic way that human beings can interpret images. In each round of Telestrations, players receive a secret phrase that they must then translate into a hastily scribbled drawing in a special whiteboard pad. These secret phrases can be fairly straightforward concepts, such as a tractor or a hospital, or they can be vastly ambitious concepts that the designers somehow expect you to create a visual representation of. How does one even draw the ancient biblical phrase, "cast the first stone," in under 20 seconds? Once the time limit is up, players must pass their pad to the person next to them. This person then looks at the pad, probably does a confused double take of some sort, before flipping down the next page and writing what they think the drawing is supposed to be. After this second step, players must then pass on the pad that they have to their neighbour, look at the last guess made in the pad they receive, and attempt to draw that in a distressingly short amount of time. This process continues until all players have gotten the pad they started the game with back in their sweaty, grubby hands. The wonders of individual thoughts, plus the, shall I say it again, distressingly short amount of time that you have to draw, means that it's highly unlikely that the last guess made in a pad is going to match the owner's secret phrase. Instead, it's more than likely to be something entirely bizarre and not at all like the original concept. Like the image of a canal boat undergoing a hideous transformation into something called a sad river cheese. Ah yes, the majestic sad river cheese. Hear its doleful warblings. But this is precisely what makes Telestrations work so well in a party setting. Seeing what terrible creations you and your friends have made and how wrongfully they've been interpreted is guaranteed to result in a room of people who are laughing so hard that they cannot possibly breathe. And if that's not the sign of a good party, then I don't know what is. If you caught our list of great beginner board games on the channel, link in the doobly-doo, right when we were a wee babby, knee-high to a grasshopper, or if you visit us at one of the gaming events around the world, then you've likely seen us recommend Codenames, the ultimate team-based word game published by Czech Games Editions and loved the world over as a fantastic introduction to tabletop gaming. Well, what have I told you? That from the same publisher, there's a just as fantastic game of cryptic clue giving and word guessing. Well, That game is Trap Words, a frenetic word-describing game in the vein of titles like Articulate and Monikers, where teams must guess the word their compatriot is trying to describe without them saying what the word actually is. So in a game of this style, if I had the word bumblebee, I might say small yellow and black insect that makes honey. Simple. So what makes Trap Words stand out from the crowd of games in a similar ilk? Well, the clue's in the name, my friends, as it always seems to be, because before you start describing the word that the rest of the group is trying to guess against the clock, the other team have laid several traps for you, hoping you'll fall in and ruin your chances at a point. Depending on the level of the track that you've reached, your opponents will be able to write down a number of words that you aren't allowed to say during your description. So if I was trying to describe the word skyscraper, then the other team might write down tall, glass, building, city, etc., and then I have to avoid using those words in my description, because if I say a single one of them, we instantly forfeit our turn and the other team will get a chance to grab a point instead. Fun little detail I may have neglected to mention though is that whilst the other team have written down all of the words that you can't say in advance, you're not actually allowed to look at them, which means you'll spend your description time trying to describe your word in the most vague way possible, avoiding anything you think that could be too closely linked to your target, knowing that it might just be sitting on the other team's trap word list. So now my original description of skyscraper, something along the lines of tall buildings in major cities that are made of metal and glass, turns into this mess. Imagine a long box that people go in, but it's reaching up into the atmosphere and it's made of see-through hard materials and they have lots of different rooms? I think you get the idea. Trap words can be incredibly funny as it allows half the people around the table to revel in the schadenfreude of their opponents desperately trying to dance around words they reckon are on your list, as you sit patiently, waiting for them to trip up and watching that sand timer slowly fall away. It's a fun way to turn a game format that a lot of people are likely familiar with on its head, and should definitely be in your list if you love watching your friends and family sweat, or if you're a master of long-winded explanations. With the rise of ejecting into space and eating your friends 'em up among us, hidden role games have never been bigger amongst the masses, which should hopefully make it even easier to convince your friends to make some weird doodles and then cock your head suspiciously at them and squint. You're just gonna draw a line, huh? As part of a series of absolutely teeny tiny Japanese board games from a company called Oink Games in Tokyo, Fake Artist Goes to New York asks you to convince your friends that you aren't secretly trying to betray them in the most bizarre way possible. At the start of the game, you'll elect someone to sit out the round and act as the clue giver. They'll take a notepad and a selection of tokens in each player's colour, then try to think up a clue for the rest of the group. Let's say, for example, France. They write down a few details about said clue at the top of their notepad to give the group some hints, and then write down the clue that they've selected onto each one of the tokens, which they'll pass back to the group. All except one of the tokens though, which will remain blank and denote the traitor, or in this case, fake artist, in the group. Everyone looks at their token to see the clue, or lack thereof, and then grabs a felt tip pen in their player colour. Here's where the real game begins, as over a series of rounds, each player will take it in turns to draw a single line on the notepad without their pen leaving the paper. If it leaves the paper before you were finished drawing, tough luck. You'll have to hope that whatever it is you were trying to convey came out correctly. Over time, those single lines, ranging from solitary objects to mad scrawls of someone attempting to convey a full image without removing their pen from the page, will hopefully start to form an image, or at the very least a collage of attempted images. The goal is to try and collectively draw something that, if you know what the clue is a perfect example of that clue. In the case of our clue, France, perhaps you'll have all drawn an Eiffel Tower or some cheese, wine, snails. The knack, though, is to draw something that you could only understand if you had the clue. Because if at the end of the game the traitor can guess the word that was written by the game master correctly, they'll win. In between these moments is an even more complex puzzle though, because before the traitor gets a chance to guess, you'll also have to try and figure out which of you has been lying this whole time. If the traitor manages to go through the entire game without being spotted and voted out at the end of proceedings, then they win, even if they had no idea what was being drawn. So this little collaborative drawing exercise turns into this arcane attempt at group communication where you'll draw these odd abstract shapes adding on to one another's strange scrawls, trying to convince everyone else of your innocence without giving up the answer to the traitor that lurks among you. Just remember that you have the benefits of knowing what you're all working towards. Now imagine what it's like being a traitor with absolutely no idea what they're supposed to be drawing, being handed a page of abstract nonsense. A Fake Artist Goes to New York is a fantastically silly game. It's not exactly a masterpiece of hidden role design, but you can explain how it works in a matter of minutes, and be laughing at each other's oddly phallic offerings in no time. Not to mention it's absolutely minuscule when packed away, which means that you can take it pretty much anywhere. Turning up to a party with a fish in tow would normally get you a few odd looks, but not if that fish is actually one of the most easy to learn, energetic and entertaining games you will ever play. Wait, you're still talking about a literal fish, we hear you say. Yes, yes we are. If you've visited Dicebreaker before, you may already be familiar with Happy Salmon. It's one of the team's all-time favourite party games, something that we regularly recommend for players no matter who you're playing with, or whether you're brand new to the hobby or a seasoned cardboard veteran. Happy Salmon is laughably simple. Inside the fish, yes, it's an actual fish, although it's fortunately made out of cloth rather than scales and guts and stuff, are small decks of cards. Each set has a unique colour and a different pattern, making it colourblind friendly. You just hand each set of cards to each player and you're ready to play. Learning to play Happy Salmon is just as quick and easy. There are 4 types of cards. High five, pound it, switcheroo, meaning you swap places with someone else, I can't really do that one in the studio, and the legendary Happy Salmon. Sorry, okay. When the game starts, everyone turns over the top card of their deck and tries to match with someone else. If you match, you both do the action and discard the card. If nobody else has the same card, you can put the card to the bottom and turn over the next one. That's it. Reveal, match, do the move and chuck the card. First one to get rid of their whole deck wins. Simple as that. Now it sounds all very basic. You might even be tempted to write it off as a boring kids game due to the Dr. Seuss-like artwork, gimmicky bag, and the fact that the whole game comes down to 4 very simple actions. But you'd be missing out on an absolute blinder if you do. In motion, Happy Salmon is a 5-minute whirlwind of shouting, the good kind always, card scattering, people slapping body parts and laughter. So much laughter. It is the definition of the word crowd pleaser. We're yet to play it with a group which just didn't instantly fall in love with it. It's simple enough to work with players of any age, making it an ideal family game. The cards are laminated too, so they'll stand up against dirt, pool water, juice, or maybe other types of drink, let's say. And when we say crowd, we mean crowd, because multiple copies of Happy Salmon can be combined to support a group of almost literally any size. Though right now, we'd obviously advise you to follow the necessary health and safety guidelines around social distancing to keep everyone safe. It can be combined with its dancing sequel, Funky Chicken, which, yes, comes in a chicken bag, for even more moves, though after dozens upon dozens of games, we're still yet to tire of the original. If all of this hasn't convinced you yet, know that Happy Salmon has made such an impression on our friendship group that doing the Happy Salmon has now become as usual as doing a high five or as a fist bump. One of the Dicebreaker team even has a wedding photo of the newly married couple pulling off the arm slapping move on the big day itself. Pretty good going for a game that looks like a fish. One extra thing that I'll just add in as well, there's 2 modes of play. You can either play where you're allowed to shout at people and say, high five, Happy Salmon. But the best mode, the absolute best mode, is an alternative version where you can't talk. And then you just have this strange atmosphere of people randomly flailing their limbs around, not their rims, that would be completely wrong, flailing their limbs around, trying to find someone with the same action. This game is fantastic. I know it sounds stupid, but honestly, as soon as we can get into a situation where you can have a big group of people again, give this thing a try. It's magic. Well, there you have it. That is 6 fantastic party games that you can play with your friends and family at home. We're very aware, of course, that when this video is going out, we are still in the midst of a horrible, horrible pandemic. In fact, it's difficult to not be aware of it. It consumes my every waking moment. However, as soon as any kind of atmosphere where you can just not hurt people by being around them becomes a thing, we implore that you get on these games. They are well worth your time. And if you already live in a household which has a good chunk of people in there and you're looking for some entertainment over the pandemic, then what more can I suggest than these fantastic games? Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. This has been Dicebreaker, the YouTube channel you're already watching. If you've liked this, then please do subscribe with the big red button below. You can also hit the bell icon to get notified whenever we put a new video live. And we've got plenty more lists like this here on the channel, but also on our home, Dicebreaker.com, where we post all sorts of lists, reviews, news, anything that you can imagine from our fantastic editorial team and all of our contributor freelance writers. If you'd like to support the channel even further, you can head over to myshopify.dicebreaker. No, sorry, that's not right. Dicebreaker.myshopify.com. Come on, Wheels, how many times have you said that? And you can buy some custom merch to support us here on the channel and on the website. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. This has been a long day, so I'm going to sign out now. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Most importantly, though, have a lovely day.